navigating migration, education disparities, and the American dream through diverse life experiences.
Most people don't do that. I didn't do it. Most people I know didn't do it. We think of other things. I wanted to study abroad. I applied for a fellowship. I got the fellowship. I chose US to study because US has one of the best communication programs. Um, and I studied. I met my wife on my college. We were both studying together. We fell in love. We got married, and I wanted to go back home. So I said, I don't want to live here. I want to go back home. I miss home. And so we went back. She came with me to India. We lived there for 5 years. And then, all kind of things happened in Delhi. Some medical issues happened. She had asthma. Delhi is a very polluted city. With that in mind, I thought maybe we could take a break. Why don't we move back to where your family is, and you can stay there and sort of recover from this crazy environment of Delhi. That's how it all started. At no point did I sit there and say I'm going to migrate to US. No, very few people do that for US, because US is one of those countries which is not like, hey, you can apply and do it. It's a long process. I mean, it takes decades for my, like, green card holders. When you get from the journey from being an immigrant to a green card is a long legal paperwork journey. Then having a green card and then becoming a citizen, that itself is it's really a bureaucratic journey, bunch of lots of paperwork, lots of money spent on. People don't really do that. Um, but I could just speak, in general, my experience of being an immigrant. And US is, we are lucky that US has that long tradition of immigrants. It's such that idea of melting pot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it still is there, but the idea that it was there and people did believe in it. The idea of American dream, and it's attracting all kinds of people there. That I think is such a powerful thing. That's one of the innovations
Yeah.
of America. People don't think of that. Not very many countries have managed to do that. Very few. America also hosts the largest number of international students.
Yeah.
How long we would do it, I don't know. Given
That's one thing I always found interesting. Like in America, we always say, our elementary, junior high, high school is so horrible, they suck so bad, but yet we get the best and brightest for our colleges, right? To me, that's always been a disconnect. How can our public school be so horrible, but yet our colleges attract so many bright students around the world?
Yeah, and I have a perspective on that, and I agree with you that the conditions of most of the public schools are very bad. But the fact that you have such a robust public school, people don't know this because they haven't lived in a. I lived in a country where public education is non-existent at school level. If you in India, it's true today. It was true 50 years ago. It was true 70 years ago, pre-independence. It has always been true. If your child is going to a government school, which is a public education, you're basically poor. That's a sign of poverty. You don't have money. And because public school system, barring one or two cities and states, it's really nothing. There are no teachers. There's no blackboard. There's nothing. It's basically a social program where if you're very poor and you enroll your kid in a public school, the midday meal program is there, so your child will get 2 meals for free. You will get some books for free. You'll get some clothes for free. That's what this whole public education system is, which means there is no interaction of people. Rich people are going to these rich schools, right? And that's why the private education is very robust. I grew up in a lower middle class family. The school I went to, and my three siblings, my two sisters, my brother, and I. My father was lower middle class family. He was not rich by any stretch, but he was middle class. He had a job. He was a government employee, and he wanted his kids to go to school. And because he knew that government school basically don't exist, they are not a school at all. They won't study anything there. My father could afford a private school for all his kids, but that private school was, and even today, a private high school or any school, middle school, can cost anywhere between $20 a month, $50 a month, all the way to $5,000.
And that's big money, right?
To $5,000.
Yeah, that's big money in India.
I mean,
and
from
third
$50 to $5,000, depending on what kind of socioeconomic condition you come from. But it exists. In US, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If your kid is going to private school, $30,000, $40,000 a year, you are not middle class by any stretch.
No,
you
no.
are in the 1%.
Yeah.
What is your other choice? Your kid goes to public school. What I love about public school system is that it democratizes us in exposure. It's not a ghetto. That's one of the serious problems that I've seen in countries like India and other countries where the public education system, however good or bad, we can argue on the quality of it. But the fact that it exists, the fact that I can send my kid to a public school and my kid will interact with somebody who is a janitor, whose family is a janitor, or somebody who is a vice president of some fancy company. My kid will have this whole exposure that I will go and talk to these different parents. That doesn't exist in very many countries. In the world where I'm coming from, but if you go to in Europe, there are some amazing examples. Finland is a great example. Norway, Denmark, Germany, they have really built social equity into their education system, and they have solid systems. But despite all of the weaknesses of public education system in America, because I have seen what it means to have a private system where you plug and play, you can afford $100 a month, your kid goes to this school. You can afford $500, that school. $5,000, IB school. And then your kid is going to go to Italy for some 5 day of culinary art. And that what it does is, and I've seen it, it creates a ghetto. Our kids become very ghettoized. So if your kid is going to a high school which is $5,000 a month, and my kid is also going to the same school, then you and I are same people, right? We're driving the same car, we think alike, we're probably in the same club, we go to Europe every year for vacation. We are a little ghetto, we are in a little bubble. Then we hang out together, our kids hang out together, and we have nothing to do with the rest of the other $50 a month, $500 a month. That's a problem. That's a serious problem, and that's why this idea of privilege, society within the societies are dominating, and people are just this idea of victimhood all the time. My kid doesn't go there, and this contempt against other fellows because you see them, from such a long distance. Your kid is barely able to, you're waiting for the bus, and here is somebody who comes. That wedding that happened, $600 million wedding in India, you saw that. That was such a outrageous thing to happen. I wish it hadn't happened. And I bet it would not happen if India had a robust public education system. There would be some level of sensitivity. At least they could have spent $600 million on their son's wedding, but the way it was done in a full view of public, I think it would be.
It was a bit much.
There would be a little bit of sensitivity.
Yeah, it was a bit much.
I'm a father. I want to do whatever I want to do for my son, but I want to be sensitive to this society that I live in, where people are barely making, people are living on $1 a month. $1 a day. They don't have drinking water. The children are being sold. Child trafficking is rampant. There's a non-profit called Free the Slaves. Literally slaves. These are kids who are enslaved. They are tied with chains, and they're working in brick industry. They're not fed. They're not allowed to go anywhere. They're sexually assaulted. They're beaten. This is the situation. This is what is happening in the country. And then you have somebody who is just throwing $600 million. So I think I love the idea of public education. I totally agree with you that the processes and the systems are not in place. I wish it was more productive in terms of its systems, so that it was not so wasteful and bureaucratic. But the idea of public education, that you can make $500,000 a year, and I'm making $50,000 a year, but we both believe in that school enough that you send your kid there and I send their kid, and we get to hang out each other, and our kids get to hang out. That's the idea of public education, and I hope. I think in Tacoma, for example, my kid has gone to 3 schools now, and all 3 two public schools. One was a play school, but I love the idea.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that he is going to public school. I would never want him to go to a private school because I have that good public school system. Because I worry about him. I don't want my kid to have any kind of superiority complex. I don't want him to look at people and say, oh, they don't have this, we have this, or we live in this neighborhood and we have that car, or I can wear this fancy. I don't want any of that. That would be the ultimate failure of me as being a father. And if I were in India and my brothers and sisters are in India and their kids go to private school. When I go meet with them, I always ask them these questions. Who are your friends?
Mhm.
Have you met their dad? I ask my brother. Have you met your daughter's parents? Your daughter's friends' parents when you went to the teacher's parents meeting? Did you invite them? Did you go to their home? And sometimes I can tell that it's not happening. There's different